Gloria, the Board of Trustees, faculty members, graduates, and the McCallum Graduate School of Business. I proudly but humbly stand here before all of you to accept this much appreciated and distinguished honorary doctorate you have chosen to bestow upon me today. Just earlier this week, I was at the White House, at the Oval Office, and I had a chance to speak to President Obama. And guess what we talked about? We talked about the fact that I was receiving an honorary doctorate from McCallum Graduate School of Business. He was a little jealous because he's given a commencement speech in Arizona, and they decided not to give him an honorary doctorate. I guess they figure he really hasn't done enough to deserve it. It's kind of curious, huh? Knowing that your course of studies over the past several years has included an emphasis on ethics and aesthetics, it is meaningful and appropriate that I speak to you this afternoon about how I have succeeded in my line of business by focusing on tolerance, benevolence, and generosity rather than the business side of music. Of course, the music is the essential ingredient that drives me. But ahead of the notes, the tones, the textures, the melody, the cries of babies, and of great importance, the silence, lays my intention, my purpose. I recently spoke with a friend who asked, what continues to inspire me in my lifelong association with jazz, the passion that has fueled my life for more than 50 years? And without missing a beat, I replied that first and foremost, I strive to represent and embody the elements of humanity. This is a very broad idea, so before I go any further, let me briefly explain how this functions in my life. As a practicing Buddhist for almost 4 decades, I've discovered valuable life lessons that are applicable to any career. And today I would like to share some of the important wisdom I've learned through my practice that can make your lives in the business world more fruitful and enjoyable. The essential values of jazz and the values in Buddhism are very similar. Immerse yourself in the moment. Respect others and respect yourself. Be gracious and courageous enough, yes, courageous enough to be non-judgmental. Try to see things for what they are without being overwhelmed. Be willing to be vulnerable, honest, and sincere. Take responsibility for your actions. When linked together, these form a powerful blueprint and are essential ingredients for a life well lived. An important transitional aspect of my personal journey occurred approximately 15 years ago. Throughout my 37 years of practice, there have been periodic breakthroughs, moments of sometimes longer periods of intense clarity, highlighting the critical questions and intrinsic issues of life. 10 years ago, I had a seminal breakthrough, and what became crystal clear to me was the realization that I had been defining myself by my job, which is something we all typically do. However, musician is only one aspect of Herbie Hancock. I'm also a father, a husband, a neighbor, a son, a teacher, a student, for some, a mentor, and a friend, to name a few. I'm a musician only when I play or discuss my craft. But the important detail is that these are all functions of a human being. Therefore, I am first and foremost a human being. That single realization freed me from a viewpoint that tended to be finite into a view that the self is infinite. I make my business decisions, what projects I want to do, where and with whom I'd like to work, based on how the outcome could affect people, or how I might reply to the issues of the world in which I live, not on how it will enhance my bottom line. I've learned that to define success solely as affluence is an illusion. A paycheck is important, but it isn't the thing that is going to make you ultimately happy. The greatest treasures in life are priceless. Courage, compassion, or openness cannot be bought. Yet these intangibles, once uncovered, add texture and meaning, and thereby true affluence to one's life. The jazz community has prospered because of its strong bond between the master and the apprentice. The music has been passed down from one generation to the next, resulting in an intricately woven art form of inclusion. The respect I have for Miles Davis, my musical mentor, and his genius is profound. An unconventional individual, I might add, he had the most unusual talent of teaching almost exclusively through his horn and his actions. He rarely needed a lot of words to get his message across. When I was living in New York City in the early 1960s, I had tunnel vision about jazz as well as classical music, and I really didn't listen to a lot of other musical forms. After joining up with Miles, I was fortunate on occasion to spend quality time at his house. And one fortuitous afternoon, I saw several album jackets strewn around. James Brown, the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, and even a flamenco record. And I realized, I said, Miles Davis is open-minded about music, and therefore exposed to new levels of musical possibilities, which in retrospect had a profound effect on the music and musical ideas that I have created until this very day. Those of us fortunate enough to have worked with him soaked up his every gesture in order to comprehend the deeper meaning of everything he said and everything he did, no matter how insignificant. Sometimes Miles would lean over to me and whisper something. I couldn't even hear what he was saying, but I go, it's got to be important. It always was. With this spirit, those of us he handpicked to play in his band learned the value of our own individuality and discovered the personal gifts each of us could contribute to the ensemble. Miles demonstrated that creativity was an endless process, that each performance was a new beginning, and of great importance to you today. What seemed like an egregious mistake at the time could actually be the germ of an inspired new piece of art, a composition even stronger than the original. However, to make that work, we had to be attuned to one another as individuals. It took patience, concentration, cooperation, and respect among the band members to make the music that changed the course of jazz and create the brilliant sounds of a team working in harmony. I remember once when I was in Europe playing with Miles, and we were on tour, and this was turning out to be the best concert of the whole tour. The band was on fire. The audience was screaming, and we had them in the palm of our hands, and it was almost like the floor was lifting up. Everybody was just playing to the best of their ability. And Wayne Shorter played this amazing solo. Tony Williams on drums, he was on fire. And then Miles Davis came up to play his solo. He starts playing and building this solo, and it's getting, larger and larger and more fantastic and amazing. And when he reaches the peak of his solo, I played this chord that was so wrong. I wanted to crawl under the piano and disappear. Miles paused, took a breath, and played some notes that made my chord right. I thought it was alchemy or something. How did he do that? It took me years to figure out Miles didn't even hear it as a wrong chord. He didn't judge it. He thought it was interesting. And he took it upon himself to find some notes to make it blossom. That's a lesson I will never forget, and I try to hold on to that and try to use that with any situation where I'm performing. And beyond performance, just interacting with another human being. Before I met Miles, a wonderful, wise, and soulful mentor named Mrs. Jordan, who taught me piano when I was 9 years old, shaped my passion for music. She explained that there was more to being a musician than just reading and playing notes. I had to involve and integrate other parts of myself into my musical pursuits, including my posture, placement of my feet, how to breathe. I play piano. You don't think about breathing. But it's very important. And of great importance, my thoughts, my ideas, and my dreams. She taught me valuable lessons about feeling and consciousness that were integral to becoming one with my instrument. I remember being very pleased to play a piece for her that I had technically mastered. I was a little kid. Right? I had been playing piano, I think, 3 years at the time. But after she praised me for my reading of the music, she sat down and played Chopin. That was a pivotal light bulb moment. And my goal from that moment was to infuse the music with passion. The third mentor I'm eager to tell you about is Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, a brilliant Buddhist philosopher. Dr. Ikeda leads a worldwide movement for peace based on the universal happiness of individuals. This movement was begun by early 20th century educators who were dedicated to the radical proposition that the institutions of society, including education, religion, government, and industry, should exist for the sole purpose of bringing happiness and prosperity to all human beings. His commitment to personal transformation as the driving force for social change, referred to as the human revolution, is what I believe business can learn from the arts. There is consummate joy and fulfillment from contributing to the betterment of a human being. When making any business decisions, I unfailingly ask myself, how I can improve the lives of others as a direct result of pursuing my dreams. Through Dr. Ikeda's wisdom, I have learned that each and every one of us possesses limitless potential. Your future depends on what you create, and my greatest hope is that over time, you will develop lives of ever-increasing value to yourself and to others. I have discovered that this is the real path toward extraordinary fulfillment and immense satisfaction in life. And it's not too soon for you to start thinking about the kind of mentor you want to become, because this will begin a journey that will influence your actions toward others and form a solid foundation for the rest of your life. Who is that special teacher, and what qualities does he or she possess? Become that person, and you are on the path to great success. I humbly invite mentors into my life, and as a result, gain wisdom and strength in every pore of my being. I also mentor on a regular basis many young people through the Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz and our important education programs. Working with the students and passing on my knowledge and experience, both technical and spiritual, is a highlight of my life. I want to spend the next few minutes describing several important ideas you can contemplate and take with you on the exciting adventure that awaits you. Bring your humanity to work. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. As your neighbor, Ralph Waldo Emerson, said, do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail. Exhibit compassion and respect for others. Do not make yourself rich solely with the accumulation of money. Make yourself wealthy by using humanity and ethics, and your fortune will have real and lasting value. Serve others. For example, think about the incomparable Christopher Reeve. A significant part of his life centered on his acting career, and in one fateful, cruel second, this was abruptly stolen, and his existence was permanently changed. However, what he did after his accident was beyond monumental and served a much larger purpose that to this very day inspires and elevates people around the world. Who among us does not pause in admiration for a minute or two when remembering his journey? Another prime example is Al Gore. In spite of his loss of the presidency due to an issue that is still highly controversial, he took one of the greatest disappointments in his life and focused on climate change, a critical issue that has had and will continue to have the most profound impact for the future of our planet. He encourages and motivates each and every one of us to take responsibility and make our world a safer place. To say I have the highest respect for both of these men and for countless others who have served humanity throughout our history and given us gifts that cannot be purchased is putting it mildly. Let them be your touchstones, not the movers and shakers who embrace shoddy business ethics. The best remedy to any problem is always a win-win solution. It's a fallacy and, frankly, downright dangerous to think that the only way you can win is if the other person loses. For example, when I'm performing in a band, I don't think about playing better than the drummer or the bass player or the saxophonist. The truth is, If the sax player is playing a great solo, that will function as great inspiration for the entire band and lift the creative spirit of each member. Not only does the sax player win, the rest of the band triumphs. There is no real competition in jazz. Each musician expresses his individual self, and ultimately, the only competition is within you. Sadly, wisdom is a word that hardly ever comes up in conversation anymore. Have you noticed that? Who talks about wisdom? We're living in the information age that calls attention to the accumulated body of knowledge, which is completely different from and has nothing to do with wisdom. Without a doubt, wisdom is born from compassion. Wisdom also transforms knowledge into compassion for the greater good, and thus has everlasting value. To illustrate, I'll tell you about a time many, many years ago when Miles noticed that I was thoroughly frustrated with my own piano playing. And at the time, I was very much in a creative rut. And Miles leaned over to me during one of those performances and said, "Don't play the butter notes." Huh? I had no idea what he meant. But I knew that since Miles said it, it had to be important. So I came to the conclusion that it meant don't play the obvious notes, because I believe butter meant fat, and fat means obvious. The most obvious notes in a chord are the third and the seventh, the notes that clearly define the nature of a chord. So I decided to radically think outside the box and began leaving out the third and the seventh in my soloing. And at first, I sounded a little awkward and erratic. Interestingly enough, though, the audience responded very positively. And you know what? I believe that they felt my sincerity, my courage, and my openness, and my desire to try something new. It was exciting to play things that I had never tried before. It was scary, too. It gave me a fresh perspective on what I could create sonically during a performance. And you know what? Ultimately, this groundbreaking experience shaped my style of playing and performing for the rest of my life. You see, Miles didn't dictate specifically what to play or what not to play. He didn't say that. Of utmost importance, I was able to eventually draw my own conclusions and discover my own answers. Miles could feel my frustration, and through his compassion for me and his respect for my feelings, he made the wisest of comments. Only a great master can provide a path to finding your own true answers. So always remember, don't play the butter notes. The ideas and qualities I'm discussing with you this afternoon are the fundamental building blocks that you already possess, and blended together constitute a formula for happiness and success. All you have to do, here's the formula, right? Is uncover the hidden gems living inside your soul, and then use them to the best of your abilities. Make the most of yourself, because that is all there is and all you have. The important thing is the heart. In closing, I want to thank Bentley University and McCallum Graduate School of Business for this exceptional honor. I'm profoundly grateful and will always do my very best to be worthy of this recognition. And to the graduating class, major congratulations on this milestone in your lives. Please travel safely on the journey that lies ahead, a rocky and rollicking adventure that will challenge and reward you for the rest of your lives. Choose wisely. Breathe deeply. Recognize, celebrate, and nurture your inner creativity. And remember to listen to the music of your soul. Bring your imagination and artistry with you, because it will serve you well as you try to make a much-needed difference in this big, wonderful, complicated world that awaits you.